My name's Casey, and I'm the Interventions Director, and welcome to the first episode of Interventions Episodes.
I'm Liz, I'm the Ops Director, and I'll be here to be helping Casey along with our journey here as in the creation of Interventions Episodes.
Today we have our first guests, the co-founders of Space Us, Ellen and Stephanie. And today they're going to talk to us about their journey as creative founders and tell us what they've been doing at Space Us.
We will begin. Amazing. So, all right, this is us. We are Stephanie Lee and Ellen Shakespeare, and we are the founders of Space Us. And we were asked to give a presentation about our experience as creative founders. So we decided to start really at the very beginning to talk specifically about our experience as creative founders. Ellen and I met on a Go bus, a very creative place, very similar to the Go bus pictured here. And we were introduced by a mutual friend. And coincidentally, we were both headed here to MIT to study. And in our case, that Go bus was going basically to Building 7, where we would be starting a graduate program in architecture. And so that's exactly what happened. We started school. It looked a little bit like this. And we got to know each other through multiple communal dinners, through model making, through more dinners, extensive trips. For instance, we were in Baja, California for the studio trip. And none of this really had anything to do with Space Us yet. But in retrospect, all of these experiences really shaped how we got to know ourselves and how we got to know each other. We learned to problem solve early on. For instance, we had to figure out how to get giant foam blocks delivered to our campus. We built things together, and we also broke things together. For instance, this plastic model here used up all of the 3D filament supply of the entire United States of America, and we also nearly broke all of the architecture department's 3D printers trying to make this. And we also learned to support one another, not only emotionally, but also physically, if you see here. And it was essentially through these great couple of years of intense, hyper-focused learning that we really developed a friendship, a relationship, and a working knowledge, or I guess a knowledge of how we work together. All the while, Ellen, myself, and a couple of our classmates would always wonder why we never got outside of our building. We were learning in theory how to design cities and buildings for people, but the only people we interacted with were each other and the ones who were walking through these doors. And when we did get out of campus, we'd find ourselves walking along Mass Ave, to and from our homes, back to campus, passing by places that looked like this, or this, or this. And we saw these vacant stores everywhere in Cambridge, and we dreamt of what it could mean if we engaged with these sites. Instead of just designing these hypothetical buildings for hypothetical conditions somewhere very far from our own neighborhood, and always presenting to a very familiar looking set of critics. So in the earliest days, we really kicked around what it would mean for us to use these vacant storefronts as our own personal studios, as places for us to work on creative projects and get feedback on them, and to really learn what kind or how design could impact people's lives. And as we began to think about and dream about this, we also looked into how much it would cost for us to rent one of these empty storefronts, and unsurprisingly, it was out of our budgets.
So that gets us here with Stephanie and myself feeling frustrated and siloed in some ways by the experience of MIT, and also really intrigued by these vacant storefronts we were seeing everywhere. And those two feelings were really catapulted into action when we enrolled in this one course called Media Ventures, hosted out of the Media Lab. And truly, kind of full transparency, Stephanie and I did sign up for this course to fulfill a distribution requirement. It has as much to do with that as it does with anything else. So sometimes life can be serendipitous. But regardless, the class forced us to really think about acting on that idea of transforming vacant places into places for artists and creative energy to grow. As part of the course, we also had to enter just about every conceivable entrepreneurial competition hosted out of MIT as well. And we were fueled by the energy of that course and some early belief in our idea by the professor, some early funding through our school. And we finally started getting off of campus. So we got to know our neighborhood and our neighbors, and we started asking for their feedback on our idea. So instead of walking through Central Square to and from school and just feeling depressed or angry about the vacant storefronts, very early on, we started using their windows as sites to solicit ideas and opinions from residents. And through efforts like these, we learned that there was a desire for new places to come together. And that was a desire that wasn't just Stephanie and my own, but something that the entire community seemed to be craving. And we were, from the very beginning, very inspired by the community support for using these underused spaces as places for people to come together. And we got outside of Central Square eventually, too. We started showing up at vacancy hearings hosted in Boston. We started testifying about the problems of commercial vacancy. And we would show up to neighborhood meetings where other groups of people were also chatting about alternatives to emptiness. And after a few months of that, and thanks to some summer funding, and feedback and tons of cold calls to landlords, we ended up here at the Roslindale substation. And over the summer, Spacey popped up in this old historic building, an old industrial building, and we turned a place that had been empty for years into a place for community gatherings, creative workspace, interactive presentations, and opportunities for local makers and artists to showcase their work. We would continue this sort of hybrid workspace, store, event space, and gallery model in Harvard Square the following fall. And we were really excited by the energy and excitement of the local creative community, the folks using our space, and we were the happiest when it could be a place for learning and making in the heart of the city, kind of precisely the type of space that we were craving as architecture students. And we were constantly floored by unexpected things too, like this one night where one of the members of our community turned the windows of our Harvard Square location into a live performance piece that stopped people in their tracks walking down the sidewalk. And there were, of course, quieter nights too, like this one in our fourth pop-up in East Cambridge. Guests would kind of come out in the middle of snowstorms to participate in some weekly life drawing courses. Kind of no better proof that people were really kind of craving these places to come together and connect. And all the while, Stephanie and I were in our final semester of grad school as we were running these kind of first 4 activations. In order to do this, we staggered our classes. We made aspects of Space Us our joint architecture thesis, and we chose some very understanding advisors. Certainly being a student and a founder at the same time is a tall order, but we share this photo of the two of us defending that thesis as potential inspiration of creative ways to do both at the same time.
So we defended our thesis and we graduated last spring. So all of that is to follow. Thank you. Is relatively recent history. So what do we do now? We continue to activate vacant storefronts. In this past holiday season, we were active in downtown Crossing. Again, we turned that empty space into a place that could feature local artists. Here, I think we represented over 50 and we showcased their work. And really, we found sort of every space that we could use to show work. So this is a large scale installation living inside a stairwell. And increasingly, we're also being asked to work outside the context of a single storefront. So we loved opportunities like this one, which took place at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston. And we created unexpected experiences outside on the deck. We've also transformed the inside of a shipping container, as well as the outside of one. And we're excited by transforming underused urban space sort of anywhere, whether that's a vacant lot or a storefront. To help us do this, we're excited to also be launching an online platform this spring that will allow us to better hear the dreams and ideas of local creatives. We want to open up projects and opportunities, whether that's a storefront or mural project, to as broad a cross-section of artists and creatives as possible. And we hope that this platform really opens up and invites that wide participation. We want to move beyond a world of niche application portals, word-of-mouth referrals, and gatekeepers, and really be able to showcase the incredible artistic talent of a city like never before.
So that takes us pretty much up to the very, very present moment. And as Stephanie and I were sort of talking about this presentation, we kept trying to think about ways where we could be kind of as honest as possible about our creative founding journey, a process that is often kind of opaque. And so in many scenarios, we typically stop the presentation here, but in an effort to kind of pull back the mask on that process, we've included some additional slides because I think that when we were starting out, we would have liked to see more of those kinds. So here's some of them, some next things that might happen, or some things that happen to us. So what's next might be a ton of painting and U-Haul trucks and storage units. We've learned that this process can be emotionally draining, physically draining, mentally draining. What's next is you may find yourself purchasing and organizing deliveries of 500 fake poinsettias in order to make a pretty fun-looking holiday installation. And we've learned that this truly might be worth it. And you might find yourself along your journey meeting an incredible group of people that in this sort of indescribable way believe in what you're doing as much as you do. And we've learned that there might be no better feeling than watching people on your own team describe your mission, what you're all about, to total strangers in their own words. What's next is you may find yourself at a totally niche, bizarre conference in the middle of Las Vegas, feeling very out of place. And we've learned, or I've learned, that seeing your co-founder kind of walk across the room is the best convincer otherwise. And what's next is you may find that your role also includes managing a relentless, never-ending, always-on social media calendar. I am truly terrified of this, so the best advice I can give here is to find a co-founder who can do this with grace day after day without complaint, and usually while also painting something. What's next is you may also find yourself returning those 500 fake poinsettias to Michael's in a U-Haul truck. And we've learned throughout our creative founding journey that Michael's has an absurdly generous return policy. And what's next is you'll quickly realize that launching a company isn't really about competitions, and most of the work happens off of stage. And we've learned that it's best to choose something that keeps you excited, even when it's just painting the inside of a shipping container black in the middle of the night.
So these are just personal anecdotes and advice. So what does that mean for you? What should you do now? To help on that end, we reached out to a bunch of people for this presentation. These are folks we met in competitions, accelerators, classes, meetups, all students who were once precisely in your shoes, making the kinds of decisions you'll make in the coming days, weeks, months. And we posed some questions to them. First, looking back, what's one piece of advice you wished you'd received as a student entrepreneur? One sentence or less, please. So we got a lot of responses, but these are the themes that stood out time and time again. Don't pick the best idea or best problem. Pick an area that you can grow passionate about solving many problems in. Network a ton and build a brand around yourself. And don't be afraid of working by yourself until you found someone with very complementary skills that rounds out your weaknesses. When people ask what you're dreaming of, when people say what you're dreaming of is not possible, ask why not. I received this advice and believe it was instrumental to continuing. Search out the kind of people in your field, search out those kinds of people in your field and create brainstorming sessions with them.
We also asked about next steps, or what should you do next? We asked, in one sentence, if possible, how did you decide whether or not to pursue your startup after graduation? Some folks said, I asked myself if my business idea still matches my core dreams and values, and if it supports a lifestyle I'm excited for. Others didn't continue on their startup after graduation, and they shared their thoughts as to why, as with enthusiasm flagging on our team and from our mentors, a job with a salary, health insurance, and stability was simply too tempting to sacrifice for our startup. Still, others said, realized this had been my dream for so long that any old job, which I could always get if it failed, wouldn't suffice until I had exhausted every option to build this company. So we know that you all have places to be, and we won't go through every response that we received, though they are very fun to read through. So we'll make available kind of a PDF of compiled responses that will be shared with everyone who's watching. And we hope that they're helpful to you. And I think with that, Stephanie and I will go ahead and wrap up this segment, this part of the presentation, and kind of open it up for more conversation.
So to start, we kind of wanted to know more about what it's really like to be a co-founder, working with someone else. How do you guys collaborate? How do you divide your work or work together? And how do you guys make decisions?
Yeah. So, I guess as Stephanie kind of alluded to at the beginning of the presentation there, one of the things I'm most grateful for is that we've known each other for a very long time and in many different contexts. So everything from like writing a book about concrete together to, working on all those models together. They had nothing to do with SpaceUs, but have built a ton of trust between the two of us. And that's something that we lean on every day as co-founders. And that just comes kind of implicitly now based on so many adventures together. In terms of decision-making, we also have a kind of dear rule to ourselves, which is that if it's a big, heavy decision, we always give ourselves a night to rest on it.
I would say like learning how to work together was also a process. Although we had collaborated a ton prior to starting a company together, I would say in the beginning, we were kind of doing everything together, which was something that we had both the time, energy to do. And it also helped us immensely as we were developing the foundation of knowledge for SpaceUs to grow from. But as we began to have more things to do, naturally, our attention became divided. If you even think about the course of the week where Ellen and I would stagger our course loads, that one of us would always be available. You already begin to see how a division of labor can tangibly take place. I would say another thing that has really helped is that we have, under this giant umbrella of what SpaceUs is, we have specific interests, and we have become pretty good at giving each other the space to really grow and to develop those interests. And I would say we still do things together. For instance, we have this running Google Docs of workshopping emails, newsletters, brainstorms. We just have we have a series of unending docs that are loosely organized. And we're super appreciative of these collaborative softwares that allow us to work together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you guys were first starting, how did you feel about jumping into something like this, like a project of this magnitude and scale? Like, what was new or different about it than what you've done in the past?
Yeah, so I would say I've worked in so many different types of situations and jobs, and I was the kind of person who had like a main job, a side project. I was working for artists, for startups, design firms, and I learned a lot about how to be scrappy and how to just like take everything on. And I really decided to go to grad school because I realized that I wanted to stop working for other people and I wanted to work for myself. I would say that taking something of like with the magnitude of SpaceUs, still continuously, I feel like in shock and awe that we're doing it. I remember when we were, taking this course, Media Ventures, we had this professor who like believed so deeply in our idea, although we were like, I think at the time we were kind of questioning whether or not it was a real thing. And he was like, why don't you just go rent a space? And we were like, oh, I don't know. That's like a really good point. And we kind of like, it was kind of like a moment of like shock where we realized like we could actually do the things that we've been talking about rather than speculating.
Yeah, it is every day still shocking to me. And I think my background's a little different than Stephanie's too. I like never really identified as an entrepreneur. That still seems like a very weird word to use to describe myself even these days. And prior to grad school had really only worked at large scale firms, medium-sized scale firms. But then like a series of like luck and chances, and also a very supportive kind of you can't screw this up environment, which is, what you get when you're launching a company under the context of like a course or under some accelerators, like these kind of built-in support systems. And certainly also the incredible built-in support system of a co-founder who has had similar experiences that are very different than yours in the past. So in some ways, it was something I was very unprepared for, but have been still so excited by it every day when I'm waking up. Still like truly incredible, and I'm still getting used to it.
Okay, so what is it like founding a business for a creative community specifically, as opposed to like any other community? Like, how have people you worked with impacted the work that you've made?
Yeah, I would say like the people we collaborate with and work with really keep us energized and inspired. We're constantly thinking about them, and we're also constantly inspired by them. SpaceUs, like at its core, is a platform for emerging local creative voices. We're excited when we're helping ideas from our community come to life. I feel like there are a lot of barriers to that. And particularly as folks coming from the creative space ourselves, I think we've also experienced a lot of the challenges and obstacles that prevent ideas from coming to fruition. And so to be able to be part of that experience is like incredibly rewarding. Yeah, and I would say like as we are like stuck indoors, we're increasingly thinking about how we can use our this like voice and this belief that creativity can be anywhere. We're increasingly thinking about how that can exist sort of in digital spaces or in virtual spaces. And I guess like we're so inspired by our community, and they themselves are like forming communities within communities, doing things constantly. So we're just like energized, and they propel us forward.
It's gonna be Would You Rather, but Space Us edition. So would you rather be in one space or another space? And then like tell us why. This one is Boston related, and you might be biased, but MFA, Museum of Fine Arts, or ICA, Institute of Contemporary Art?
I think the ICA is doing some incredible programming to support local creatives, and it has been such an incredible experience to work with them. So I will say the ICA.
Would you rather be floating on a cloud in the sky or floating in outer space? Assume you're safe, perfectly safe in both situations. You're just like floating one or the other.
It's interesting because I was thinking cloud because like then you're situated, right? You like have a thing and you're like, hey, come to my cloud. But I feel like right now in this moment, everyone's in space and I'm kind of like, I'm finding this moment to be like a very interesting one that I'm learning a lot from. But given that Ellen said cloud, I'm likely to say cloud.
Would you rather be sitting under a tree or would you rather be climbing a tree in the branches?
I mean, I think I'm saying this only because it's like Friday at 4 p.m., but sitting under a tree sounds great and relaxing and very comfortable right now.
I feel like climbing a tree is more fun, but I also am like, if you're by the tree, can't you pick those?
Mm-hmm. True. You can make your own.
Yeah.
Not combined. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for talking with us today. Do we want to just say bye to the viewers? Any last words you want to say to our audience out there?
Feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions or have like a moment of truth that you're like working through. I mean, we can provide ears, but we don't have the answers. We're launching a few things in April, which we are excited about. One of them may or may not be the platform. We will see. And we are, I guess, there are some exciting things we're working on. And we also have a newsletter that highlights like a creative a week, and it's been very fun.
So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.